Oi, hallo, selam. Hallo. สวัสดีค่ะ
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome to International Student Stories. I am your host, Simon Hamlin. We've got a part 2 for you. Maryam Esmat returns for a second interview. Maryam, who is an astrophysicist and author, talked with us in the previous episode about her journey to the US and her passion for literature and writing. Today, Maryam discusses her internationally recognized work in astrophysics and her dedication to mentoring fellow international students. She also offers up some useful advice for students thinking about following in Maryam's footsteps to study abroad. Before we start, please help us share these inspiring stories with your friends and family. Take a minute to subscribe to and follow the International Student Stories podcast. You can also rate us, share the podcast with others, and write a review. Go ahead and pause this episode right now so you can take action. Thank you. We now welcome back Maryam Esmat for part 2 of her international student story. Welcome back, Maryam.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me again.
You were chosen to be part of the Forbes magazine Middle East 30 under 30 list. You interned at the Space Telescope Science Institute, operated for NASA by Aura, working on the James Webb Space Telescope in the instrumentation team. Tell us about that experience and what it was like working on that project.
Insane. It was great. It was absolutely great. The James Webb has been my favorite telescope since I was a kid, from the time I was about 14. There's actually a photo of me with a bunch of my friends at the Cairo Book Fair, each one of us holding a cardboard model to a telescope or a space shuttle or an image for a galaxy or a star cluster. And I was holding the James Webb. And so I was always super fascinated by it. Space Telescope Science Institute specifically are very big on outreach. And so they would publish articles. They've published articles for as long as I can remember. And that's how I knew about the James Webb. I would read about it all over the internet when I was home. And it was always a dream, like, oh my God, this is a telescope that I am very passionate about. And I knew at the time about other telescopes, but this one was the one that was, I would say, most detailed and covered, given how big the project was. And so it was one of the major reasons I wanted to pursue astrophysics, but I definitely never thought I would work on it. That's not something that was even a dream. It was a dream to even have to talk to someone who's worked on it or was related to it. So flash forward, I ended up going to Lycoming College and I majored in astrophysics and English creative writing, and suddenly I no longer had to hear about the James Webb when I went looking for it specifically. I just would walk out of the classroom and find someone talking about it, or I would find images of it that would come up in conversation with people or in the department, or we would go to a conference and people would talk about it, or I would find it on ads on YouTube, and it was suddenly everywhere. And it was quite convenient that Space Telescope was only 3 hours away from Lycoming College, where I went and received my undergraduate bachelor's degrees. And so I ended up applying. I was looking also at the time for an internship to work on telescopes, because that's the thing I'm passionate about the most, telescopes and detectors. And that was in spring 2019. And so I ended up applying to the position that they had posted on their website, and it worked out.
The universe was conspiring in your favor.
Yes, pretty much. I mean, it is worth saying that the James Webb was supposed to launch in 2010. And I first learned of it when probably 2011 or 2012, which is about the time I was 13 or 14. And so it kept getting pushed back. It kept getting pushed back again and again and again until I got that internship, which was crazy. And then I ended up seeing it in person, and I definitely could not hold back the tears because I ended up seeing it in 2022 in person after having worked on it for about 3 years. And after having first heard of it by like about a decade, if not more, so it was a very surreal feeling. I would say the biggest, most intense emotion I've ever felt in my entire life was when I was like right in front of it.
And what was so unique about the images you and your team were able to capture?
So what we did, so we worked on it before it was launched to begin with. I was part of the near infrared camera instrumentation team. And what we did, we were trying to calibrate the camera that was already there on the telescope to make sure that it is looking at the things it needs to look at. So we were the ones who were operating tests and making sure that everything worked the way that it was supposed to. Because when you think about it, when I joined the team in 2019 and the James Webb launched in 2022, I mean, that's about 2 years before launch. Like that's very, very soon, right? And at the time too, it was supposed to launch in 2021. So we were at a crunch time basically. And so we were, in a lot of ways, I would say that I kind of joined at the very, very end, like kind of putting up the ribbon, right? Before you kind of send it to space. And so what our team was mostly doing was making these checks. And then afterwards, after all of these things were perfected, I would say, and we were happy with it, and we kind of like pushed it forward to have the James Webb go through other types of tests. I ended up joining another team that was explaining to extrasolar planet scientists or exoplanet scientists to how they would need to use the telescope, how they would cater their proposals to be able to get time on the telescope. And so I worked on two separate projects on the James Webb specifically, and the images that we get to see, they're related more to the first project I was working on for the telescope. And it was surreal, definitely. I mean, the images that were taken later were not by just our team. They were by all of the teams, all of the instruments. So it was, like I said, insane.
How did you feel when you found out you were chosen for the Forbes Middle East 30 under 30?
I found out 2 days later. I I was backpacking in Thailand at the time, and I was on a remote island, and there was no internet or electricity, so my phone was dead. And so I didn't know until I went back to Bangkok and charged my phone and connected to the internet, and my phone went blank because like it literally went dark and it gave up on me because of all of the notifications. I found out from social media. Yeah, like I remember like seeing all of these notifications on my phone, like bing, 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 bing. And then I tried to open one of them. And then I remember vividly, it was like Forbes on Facebook, Forbes Middle East, written in Arabic, with my picture with the James Webb next to it. And then my phone just died. And I was like, I couldn't even finish reading the actual post. I just remember Forbes Middle East and then my picture and then the James Webb next to it. And I was like, it looks like I may have gotten the Forbes. It looks like I may have made the 30 under 30 list, but I wasn't sure until my phone charged a little bit and I was able to look at things properly, like about an hour later. But I was definitely late. I found out 2 days later. It was funny.
Everything went dark, so it's no wonder that you went on to work on dark matter detection. So you're currently a PhD student at Johns Hopkins University working on dark matter detection. For people who don't know, and this was myself included before I looked it up, explain just really simply what dark matter is and why it matters, why it's so important.
Well, let me see if I can relate this to what we've been talking about. So like I said earlier, I'm a telescope fanatic. I've been always a fan, and I ended up working on telescopes throughout. So in undergrad, I worked on a radio telescope and then worked on the James Webb, and then kind of like expanded my understanding of the universe through an observatory afterwards. So like the way that I've approached the understanding of how the universe works was detection of things. So I started with a radio telescope, and then the James Webb is an optical telescope that works in the infrared range, right? And then the third observatory, or you can say telescope, but it's called an observatory because it looks at things from a very different messenger, sort of like understanding the data and looking at things in the universe differently. It's called the Laser Interferometer Space Antenna, or LISA, which is a gravitational wave observatory to look at the universe from. We usually look at the universe through electromagnetic waves, but this observatory looked at the universe from a gravitational wave perspective. And gravitational waves were discovered they were discovered in 2015 by LIGO. So I'm explaining this to get to the point of why we look at dark matter. So bear with me here. So the universe as we know it propagates different energies. And we get to understand the universe based on the data we get of these energies. And we get this data by designing and using telescopes and observatories and detectors. And so when we think about the universe, we try to always think about, or back in the day, we try to always think about how it works based on our perception, because we see things in electromagnetic waves, light, just, photons hitting our eyes, just light. But as we continued moving forward and understanding our knowledge and physics of the universe, we realized that light isn't everything. Light actually is very little. Most of the universe is dark. All of the universe is governed by a lot of dark things that we know nothing about, and gravity. So I'm trying to make an analogy here. If we're thinking about electromagnetic waves as looking at something using glasses, and we're looking, we can say that gravitational waves are something that we hear. Now, this is not true. This is just an analogy. I'm just trying to explain the different senses that we're trying to gather data about the universe, right? So if we're really trying to understand, electromagnetic waves, we can wear some kind of glasses to see these things. And gravitational waves, we can wear some type of earplugs to hear them. And then with dark matter, it's maybe something that we can feel, right? So we're using our different senses to understand how the universe works, because when you think about it, when you're talking to a person, if you look at them, you understand some stuff, but you need to hear them. And eventually you need to touch them. You have to involve all of your senses to completely absorb something. And this is what multi-messenger astronomy is about, or multi-messenger astrophysics, is to understand the universe from a lot of different messengers. So electromagnetic waves, gravitational waves, these are the ones that we know so far. Dark matter comes in as a new type of messenger thing. And so we have not discovered dark matter yet, but so far the hypotheses are that there are dark matter particles, or there are dark matter particles that decay into particles that we want to look at. And so how it works is that, like electromagnetic waves and gravitational waves, we build a detector, a lot of ways like a telescope analogy. But a detector is a bit different because it uses a lot of other sources and a lot of other things than what we use typically in a telescope or an observatory to understand what dark matter is. Because again, we don't know what it is. But here are things that we do know about dark matter. It constitutes 27% of the universe, whereas normal matter, like you and me and the sun and the moon and our lovely planet Earth, we only constitute 5%, actually less than 5% of the universe. So based on the electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic waves that we get from the universe, we only know 5%. So with the help of another messenger like dark matter, we can know 27% more. And with gravitational waves, we can know even more. And some of these things overlap, because you could be looking at an object and you could see the light part of it, but if you knew about the dark matter in it, you also understand the dark part of it. And then if you know about the gravitational waves of it, you understand about the gravity of it in ways that we haven't before. And so this is a lot more information and data that you would not have gotten if you only had looked with your glasses.
It almost feels like you are traveling. To go back to, in our previous episode, you talked about your fascination with geography. It's like if you were to embark on this part of the world that nobody has gone to, we almost don't even know what's going to be there when we get there, but it's something new and exciting, and it could be very fruitful for our lives. It sounds like you are going on this really amazing expedition.
That's an amazing analogy. That's exactly what cosmologists do. That's what we're doing. Yes.
And it sounds like it's very complex work. I would imagine you need to collaborate and connect with fellow astrophysicists and scientists. What's your experience been in connecting with others in the field? What challenges have you come across, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Well, to answer your first question about collaborations, I'm currently part of the HAYSTAC collaboration. It is the haloscope at Yale sensitive to cold dark matter. It is a collaboration between Yale University and Johns Hopkins, as well as University of Colorado at Boulder and University of California at Berkeley. And so we are working on this one particular detector to detect cold dark matter particles, or as we call axions. So this has been my experience in grad school with collaborations. It has been absolutely amazing. My PI, or principal investigator, Danielle Speller here at Hopkins, has been absolutely phenomenal. She's the best of the best of the best. And everyone I've been working with at the HAYSTAC collaboration has been also absolutely supportive in a lot of ways, especially I came in and joined the collaboration as a first-year graduate student who was just starting new on dark matter. So I didn't see anything but support from everyone. So that's the type of collaboration that I've had in grad school. As for undergrad, it was a little bit different because I worked on multiple projects in undergrad in my research experience there, like at Lycoming College or at Space Telescope or at other places like the Flatiron Institute. And so I would say the biggest, most important thing about collaborating with scientists is that there isn't really a rule book. If you read a paper and you really like someone's work, you can always cold email them. Be like, hi, I really like this. I'm really interested. Here are questions I have. Are you looking for potential students to work on this particular thing or like get out another paper? I have ideas. This could happen via email. This could happen organically at a conference. My personal thesis advisor in undergrad wasn't even part of Lycoming's physics department or astronomy and physics department, but rather I went to a talk at the American Astronomical Society meeting in Hawaii to present on my James Webb work. And that's where we met. I went to a talk and I found someone who was giving an absolutely amazing talk about gravitational waves, because that's what I wanted to do next. And so I just surrounded myself with all of these gravitational wave scientists, went to all of these talks and workshops, and went up to her afterwards. And I was like, I'm so in love with what you're talking about. I'm really interested in working on gravitational waves. Are you interested in taking on a student? And so this was before COVID. So we had already planned to work together remotely. And we didn't really exactly know what we were going to work on. We just knew that it was going to be gravitational waves. And so over the course of 3 months after that, we were like talking about things, reading papers. She was trying to gauge where my experience was at, what I wanted to learn. And it was great. We ended up writing a proposal for a fellowship that I later received to fund my senior thesis, and ended up working on this for a little bit over a year and a half, and ended up with a departmental honors, like graduation plaque. And it was great. I really enjoyed working with Dr. Katelyn Breivik. She was hands down the most, I would say, beneficial to me in my undergrad career going into a PhD program. She not only helped me understand new concepts, but also taught me how to understand them and work on them on my own, and also helped me a lot and taught me a lot about applying to grad school and about how it's supposed to be inclusive and supportive in the scientific community, and how to criticize one's own work without being harsh and doing better. And I still learn from her to this day. And then every time I see her at a conference from then on, I truly, truly, truly feel forever indebted to all of her support and work, and especially for letting me work on something that there was no way I would have been able to work on otherwise with anyone else.
There are a lot of probably misconceptions, let me know if that's fair to say, about scientists and in particular astrophysicists. What are some of those misconceptions, and what would you want people to know about astrophysicists and the truth about your community?
A lot of things. The first one I would say is that the first thing that people tell me, or when they find out that I'm an astrophysicist, is, oh my God, that must be hard. And that is valid. Astrophysics is hard, but in my opinion, I think so is everything. Everything that you end up doing that you are very passionate about, the deeper you go, the harder it gets. And so I believe, or I think that people should not be discouraged from pursuing something just because it is hard, because everything is hard. There is a very, very good quote. I don't remember who exactly said it, but the gist of it was, choose your own hard. You know, exercising early in the morning is hard and difficult, but also not getting that exercise and feeling like a bum in the morning is also hard, right?
I think in the military, they call it like embrace the suck.
Exactly, exactly. Like I said, studying for an exam is really hard, but not studying and getting a bad grade is also really hard. So pick your hard. And so there is this conception that maybe it's a bit intimidating. And so what I always like to say is everything that you truly love and put effort in has to be somewhat intimidating, right? And so sometimes as a scientist, and as many of my astronomy and physics and astrophysics friends, we do not feel very smart every day. Actually, we never feel smart every day. If I felt smart maybe twice a month, I am very lucky, because you're working on groundbreaking things. You're working on state-of-the-art things that people have never done before. You're the first person to do it, and 100% you are going to fail the first at least 10 times. And so you fail every day, and you learn to fail better every day. And as you fail, I guarantee you, you do not feel smart. Like I said, you feel smart maybe 2 or 3 times a month. And you take that as a win if you do, because there are going to be some months that you don't feel very smart. And you need a lot of help, and you need a lot of support, and you need to work on things even when you don't have motivation. So that's a misconception that I kind of wanted to just shed light on, that, you know, science is difficult, but that should not discourage you. If anything, you should think, or you can think that because it is hard, I can do it, right? Because, you know, if it's hard on everyone, then why can't I do it, right? So that is definitely one thing. The other thing is there is the expectation that only certain people from certain backgrounds with certain educations can pursue astrophysics or physics or astronomy. And we see this discrepancy a lot when we really look at the number of people from various backgrounds who are in physics. There aren't many of us, unfortunately.
And when you say us, let's talk specifically about Arab women, if that's okay, in astrophysics. I know it's underrepresented. How underrepresented is it? And what would you like to see change in that area?
Well, Arab women specifically in physics are a very, very, very small subset. I was honestly more targeting like people of color or women in general. Like if I were to base it off of Arab women specifically, that would be extremely difficult. I don't think I would have a lot of data points to say, but to hit this point home a little bit more, it took me 3 years during my undergrad career to find another Arab who does physics, if that puts things in perspective. And that's not an Arab woman. My friend is an Arab man. He's an Egyptian man. And I didn't even find him in person. I found him on Twitter. And so it's also, like I said, like we were talking earlier about collaborations and stuff, it is a little bit challenging to approach someone and be like, hi, there is nothing in common between us except that we're both Arabs or Egyptians and we love physics. Can we be friends? Like, I can't believe you exist, right? And to say that also is like, it was a huge like surprise and excitement to be able to find someone I could speak with in my native language who also loves physics, who understands my background. But that's for me to put things in perspective. That was the first time I met an Arab physicist. And then a year after, I met another one at a conference. She's also an Egyptian woman. And just to say, his name is George Iskandar, and the Egyptian woman I'm talking about is Noura Ibrahim. They're both doing their PhDs right now. Absolutely amazing people, absolutely super supportive friends, and amazing researchers as well. And so that was my second time. There aren't many of us. And then last year, I had another fellow Egyptian physicist reach out to me right before Forbes, just after the James Webb thing kind of blew up and stuff. And her name is Shams Al-Adawi, and she's also an Egyptian physicist. She actually just defended her PhD thesis, her PhD defense a few weeks ago. But what I'm trying to say is, throughout my entire career, I know 3 people.
That's crazy.
But also to say, there are universities in the Middle East who have physics as a track. And so since Forbes, I have had so many people reach out to me, especially from Egypt, who are involved in physics or astronomy on some level. And they have indeed graduated from Egypt, and most of them are doing their PhDs here now. But if I can tell you about all of these people right now, name by name, they're less than 50. And the only reason I know about them is because the whole James Webb and the Forbes news thing that happened, but there was no other way that I would have been able to find anyone. And so if any Arab physicists are hearing this, we have a Discord channel for Arab physicists. So you can always reach out to me via email or on Twitter or on Instagram to reach out, and we can add you to the Discord channel. We would absolutely love to have you.
We'll put all that in the show notes so people can access that. And is it fair to say, because you've become a mentor to students as well, is it fair to say that this knowledge and understanding that you are a bit of a unicorn in this field, did that drive you to want to really mentor students and take on that type of role?
Mentoring has been a huge part of my life. It takes about 10% of my week since I was like 18. So since I've decided to go to Lycoming and work on astrophysics and creative writing, and ever since even before having left Egypt, like right after I've signed all of my enrollment stuff for Lycoming, I started mentoring students at EducationUSA Egypt, actually. And at the time, it was focused mainly on applying to universities in the US. But over time, it has evolved into, besides that, mentoring astronomy and physics adjacent fields, mentoring undergrads as well. So my focus now has shifted a little bit from high schoolers, which I still do, but more towards undergraduate students who are looking into continuing a physics track, whether it be in academia or research in general, and how to get there and decide more on what they want to do. So I was the president of the Society of Physics Students chapter at Lycoming, and then I became the associate zone counselor for the Society of Physics Students' national council in the US. And I'm very big on mentorship. So again, if anyone is hearing this and they would like to get some advice from a fellow international student like you about these things, I definitely would be very happy to do so.
And what advice would you give students who are thinking about coming to study in the US? You're obviously a trailblazer from your community, which we talked about in the last episode, and a trailblazer in your field in astrophysics. What messages would you want to share with students who might be having doubts about furthering their studies in the US or elsewhere?
One step at a time. One of my favorite quotes says, by JP Morgan, actually, it says, "Go as far as you can see. When you reach there, you'll be able to see farther." There is no way 14-year-old me, who was holding this James Webb model cut out, would have thought that I would not only end up traveling and moving and going through all of these, happy and sad moments, and having worked on it and continued to work on other observatories and detectors, and today be here where I am today, because I didn't think that, right? Like, there is no way I would have envisioned this as a 14-year-old or as a 16-year-old or as even a 20-year-old, right? So one step at a time, take your time, plan as much as you can. Know that all of your plans may not necessarily happen, but in making the plans, you will get to where you need to go. If you look forward, if you plan things, you're in pretty good shape. And as commonly known, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. So this is important. And again, failure is important, but please plan in advance. And that's something I wish someone would have told me. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be so hard. There are gonna be very disturbing nights, and there are gonna be very lonely times. And sometimes it's only gonna be yourself, especially at the very beginning. It does get easier afterwards. Surround yourself with the right people. Do not let go of who you are as a person. Don't try to fit in a society that doesn't accept you for who you are, because they're never going to truly accept you, period, no matter how much you become like anything that is not yourself. And then you're going to lose yourself. And you don't want to do that, because you have your roots, you have your identity, and that's truly all you need. And so if you keep your identity and work very hard on making sure that you're happy where you're at, surround yourself with the right people, and have the courage to let go of people who aren't necessarily good for you, and work really hard even when it really feels like it's not going to work. Find advisors and mentors, especially if you don't come from a family, or if you don't know people who are doing what you're doing. You need to find someone to guide you. You can work so hard, but in the wrong direction. So you need to find people to help you and guide you and tell you when you're wrong. And importantly, find people to criticize you and remind you that you're not invincible. Like, it is important to feel invincible sometimes, but not all the time. And you need to cut yourself some slack. You're human, you're gonna fail. It's in the failures that you thrive, right? Like Taylor Swift recently has gotten an award, and in her speech, she said something along the lines of, it took her thousands of bad ideas to get to the good ones and to be celebrated for the good ones today. And I would like to borrow what she said to say this now. And it's okay to be a unicorn in your field, whether you decide to do astrophysics or anything else. In a lot of ways, people are going to remember you as the unicorn. Most of my collaborations and people remembering me from certain situations, they remember me as the Egyptian writer in physics conferences, and they remember me as the Egyptian physicist in writing conferences. And you may end up feeling a little bit weird and a little bit odd. Love that about yourself, I would say.
I mean, it's about embracing what makes you unique. And what I love about all the other advice, that amazing sage advice that you've just given, is it doesn't just apply to students, it applies to all of us. Thank you for being you, and for the role model that you are, and for all of your accomplishments, and for all of the exciting things that I know you're going to be doing in the future. Thanks for being here today and sharing with us. And we really loved having you on and talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, truly appreciate it, Simon.
Thank you again for listening to International Student Stories. And thank you to our team for putting together this episode. Stories are meant to be shared, so please pass the story on to a friend or family member who needs to hear a good story. A few other quick notes. I invite you to check out the show notes if you want more details on some of the topics discussed in this episode. For all the latest podcast news, stop by our website, studyintheusaglobal.com/podcast. That's STUDY in the USA global.com/podcast. Subscribe to the International Student Stories podcast to be alerted on new episodes. And contact us if you know of a current or former international student whose story needs to be shared with the world. Goodbye for now, be well, and much love to each and every one of you.